This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD in the studio, Neal Alger. He's a jazz guitarist and but much more. Welcome, Neal. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, tell us a little bit about the other genres that you play as well.
I do play R&B soul music. I've been doing quite a bit of gigs with certain band leaders. So like yeah, sort of like a neo soul or old school soul music,
Mhm.
R&B. And then I also love Brazilian music quite a bit.
Mhm.
I have a Brazilian wife, and dug very deep into the songbooks of various genres from Brazil. Yeah, and that's those are the two biggies that are kind of jazz related that I sometimes navigate in.
Mm. When your new album is called Old Souls, but you like soul music, so is your album uh, derived from old souls in the human soul, or is it from soul music?
I think the title was referring more to sort of the spiritual old souls rather than specifically soul music. Although, some of the tracks like that go with the Skull Flow that you just played has a little bit of an bluesy or R&B bent to it. But yeah, definitely wasn't intentional to draw on soul music. It was more about the spiritual term, old souls.
Mhm. And why did you choose that? Is it on account of spirituality, or what inspired you to use old souls for your album title?
That's a good question. Naming songs or naming albums is a tough process for me anyway. I don't know about other band leaders and artists, but I just really enjoyed the way it sounded. I just it's I think it's a term that everybody can kind of relate to. Oh yeah, such and such. He has an old soul or she has an old soul. So I thought it would, compared to some of the other track names on the album, I thought that would be a fitting one that would kind of resonate and be roll easily off the tongue, so to speak.
In the jazz industry, when you speak with your fellow jazz musicians and producers, do they mention old souls like he or she has such talent? They must be an old soul. Does that ever happen?
Yeah, that's kind of was what I was referring to. Yeah, every once in a while, yeah, they'll talk about somebody that has, I don't know, very laid back disposition or doesn't let things bother them too much, or they seem to have just a very mature vision about things. Yeah, every once in a while, somebody will say that. Oh yeah, it's he or she is an old soul. Yeah,
Mhm.
I like that.
Well, when did the jazz bug and the music bug first get you?
Uh, it was my high school band director was the person that first introduced me to jazz. I didn't grow up listening to jazz at all. My parents were not, they were classic rock lovers.
Mm.
So junior year of high school, my band director knew that I played guitar. I was playing percussion, and he's like, "Yeah, I know you play guitar. Would you be interested in just trying out for the jazz band and see if you like it?" I said, "Sure." And then I come to find out that improvisation is involved, and that I can just make up solos. And for a guitar player, soloing, I grew up in the 1980s, the shredder decade, so I loved hearing guitarists really flaunt their prowess on the instrument. So yeah, so it was really high school. I was about 16 years old when the bug started.
Mm. And you said that earlier you were playing, what were you playing on your guitar? What your teacher wanted you to play, or did you play some of the rock songs that your parents enjoyed?
Uh, Kind of the rock songs that my parents enjoyed, and I was actually into really like heavy metal. Like here, I see you have a flyer from this band Slayer.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was really into hard rock and heavy metal, and I'm self-taught. I didn't have a teacher at the time, so I was just kind of learning things from magazines and things I picked up from friends and whatnot. So teacher came much later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you must have really loved it in order to learn it on your own, because music theory is so hard. I tried it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of a geek and geek for music theory. I love just understanding how harmony works and how music ticks. I really like the theory part of it. Yeah.
Well, music theory seems to revolve a lot around math. Are you a good math student? Were you a good math student as well?
I was decent. I never got into calculus, but I know that there is a huge relationship between the two. Yeah, and that part of it I like, but I was never like really, really good. My wife is quite good at math. So,
So, did you eventually learn to read music, or do you how do you play now?
yeah, I learned to read. I was playing percussion in the concert band in high school,
Hmm.
and that taught me rhythms. I feel like I have a good rhythmic foundation because I learned how to read rhythms first.
Hmm.
And then through like playing bells, orchestra bells, or vibes, then I learned to read the pitches that move up and down from there. And
Hmm.
then the guitar, reading on the guitar came later. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's how I learned to read in high school.
Was it hard for you to learn? Because for me, I tried learning. Oh, it was very hard for me.
Yeah, it's a little tricky at first, especially guitar is particularly difficult to
Hmm.
learn to read on because of the where the notes lay. I would suggest piano because there's one place to play every note instead of five places on the guitar, four or
Wow.
five.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, you were interested in heavy metal and rock. Did that get infused into any of your jazz compositions?
A little bit. Actually, there's a cut on Old Souls called Dance of the Miscreants. There's a little riff. The beginning, it's the very beginning of the song. It's
Mhm.
kind of a rhythmic ostinato, we call it in music. And I think that is somewhat derived from my metal days. It kind of has a power chordish kind of feel. And I wrote that back in I think 2005. So some of the material on the CD is quite old, but some of it's brand new. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
When you re-record that, so it sounds totally different, right? Because sometimes when you register music, like sometimes when some artists they register music and then we have a little tracking tool at the station and it will pick up the track as the old track.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but what about the Dance of the Miscreants? Is this a totally new recording with a different like a different accompaniment and
Oh, I
setup?
see. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I never recorded it before. Yeah, I only
Oh,
just for the old compositions. I only took ones that I hadn't recorded that just kind
okay.
of been sitting. So yeah, yeah. So it didn't have a tracking number before, fortunately. So it's brand new as far as everybody out there is concerned.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we use that dragging actually to help the artists get their royalties because if it pops if it auto generates then it gets fed into the licenses that we have and then the licenses they track how many spins you get and then eventually when they accumulate enough then you get your royalty check.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, I know I registered the song with I forget the name of the organization. So they should have tracking numbers currently.
Gray
Yeah.
Snows, Disc Makers, CD Babies, any of those?
Well, Caligram Records, I believe, has their own system or they have
Mhm.
their own organization that they work through. So the label and then yeah, I can't it's four initials and I can't remember what it is. It's not
Oh,
ASCAP or BMI. I can't remember.
uh-huh.
It's an organization specifically designed to assign those codes.
Oh,
Um, let me see.
ISRC codes, you mean?
Yeah,
ISRC
yes,
code?
I think that's it. I think that's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Oh, good. Oh, that's good. If you have an ISRC code, that's a very, very good start.
Yay. Yeah. I'm all about royalty checks.
Yes, of course. Yeah, well, you put a lot of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's nice to have some sort of return on it. Yeah. Some
Yes.
whether it's monetarily or people just listening. So
Yeah. Well, that's the royalty would be your passive income. However, you do enjoy live performing too at gigs, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We had a wonderful CD release party a little over a month ago at Fulton Street Collective,
Uh,
and I was able to sell hard copies in person, and then we also have in at Andy's Jazz Club May 10th and 11th. That'll be another opportunity for folks to come and hear the music from the record and
mm,
also purchase a CD if they feel so inclined. So yeah, May 10th and May 11th, Friday and Saturday at Andy's.
okay. That's do you have the address too?
I believe it's
Oh, don't worry about it.
oh
We'll just
yeah,
let
East
them.
Hubbard, 11 East Hubbard, I believe,
Yeah.
or 20 21,
Yeah, that's okay.
right in State, Hubbard and State.
Okay, okay. Awesome. Thank you. When you were starting out, how did you get your first gig? Was your first gig jazz or was it something else?
Um, Well, I mean, if we're just talking about, yeah, just general performances. I had a band in high school,
Mhm,
and we collectively would just ask venues if we could play. There was one place in in Chicago that's pretty famous with rock fans, Medusa's, which was like Belmont and School, roughly. But as far as jazz, I arrived, in the city and I had a trio and a quartet, and I just would call places or email wasn't as much of a thing back then. Yeah, so I don't remember which venue it was. Probably the Bulls, the Jazz Bulls, which was in Lincoln Park, another very famous venue that was gracious enough to give a rookie like me some gigs. Yeah,
Did
so.
you have to audition for them?
No, I think back then, one of the ways you could influence their decision was like a cassette, a little cassette
Mhm,
demo,
mhm,
or a CD. I think CDs were already a thing by that time, but like yeah, electronic press kits were not, didn't exist yet, so you couldn't send anything electronically back in those days. You literally had to go to the club and drop off the
mhm,
stuff.
mhm. Well, that's a little human touch too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
They
which
could, yeah, they could see your personality, and it matters a great difference. I think it matters a lot.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah. Just the personal connection, them seeing you,
Mhm,
and it's also good just to hang out at the place that you want to play too. Get to know the patrons, get to know the management and stuff. Yeah, I
mhm,
think that's a good idea, even now where
mhm.
everything's online.
So when you applied to play over there, did you kind of go to the club and see what music they were, what artists they had playing, so that you decided to inquire there?
Exactly. Yeah, I was already just going there because a lot of musicians in town said this is the place you
Mhm,
gotta go. And I got to know the names of the managers and yeah, I mean, it was so long ago. This was like 30 years ago. But I believe that I gave them, I don't think I gave them a resume per se. But yeah, I think I dropped off a demo cassette and said, here, if you take a listen, if you like it. And they did, apparently. So I played there a handful of times over the course of a few years, and then they closed down,
mm,
unfortunately. It was a great, great place. It was kind of the venue in town where musicians would come to after their gigs
uh-huh.
just to commiserate and chat and hang out. Yeah, it was open very, very late, like
Mhm.
4 a.m., I think.
How long did it take for them to get back to you after you gave them the cassette tape?
Oh, geez, I don't remember. I mean, yeah, it was so long ago. I mean, you really have to be assertive and follow up.
Mhm,
If you don't hear back from them in a week or two, you really have to, get on the phone and say, hey, did you get it? Did you listen to it? What do you think? So
mhm.
yeah, I don't. I wish I could remember.
Well, you just gave some very, very good advice to any of the aspiring artists that are listening now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of artists in Chicago that are really making things happen, booking a lot of gigs. So there's a good work ethic happening. I can see it.
Mhm. Do you uh, do you travel much around the country too, playing?
Not so much now that I have a family, but in the early 2000s, there's a fantastic pianist, singer, Patricia Barber, who I'm still part of her band, and when she was doing a lot of European and elsewhere, when she was doing a lot of touring, I was part of that band from roughly 2001 to 2012. So yeah, I've gotten the opportunity to play in some pretty wonderful places over the years.
Mm.
Yeah.
Are there any places that particularly, any performances that particularly stood out that you remember that were special?
Well, I'm partial to Brazil because but this is well before I met my wife, oddly enough. But we played in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in 2004, and uh, the jazz singer of Brazil, Leni Andrade, she sat in with us for a few songs. So that one was really memorable. I was literally shaking. I was so nervous because she's a legend. She's kind of like the Ella Fitzgerald of Brazil.
Oh,
And Patricia loves her. So she came and sang some songs with the band. And it's this place it was this famous jazz club also that shut down called Mistura Fina.
mm.
And it was a restaurant upstairs, and then downstairs they had the jazz club. Oh, and it was fantastic. Yeah, we had 5 days there in Rio.
Mm. Yeah, that reminds me of a kind of a restaurant slash club that I went to in Colombia. It seemed as if the upstairs was like the dining and the downstairs was a lot of the performance and all that. Is that common in South America? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know if it is. Yeah, that's very yeah, it's very strange that it's the same setup. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, there are other venues in the States and in Europe that do that too. But yeah, wow. Colombia, I'll have to check that place out.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do know that we were sitting like along the railings and then we could look down. But then some of the performers, I think they came upstairs and as well too, and sitting at our tables. It was a lot of fun. It was a school trip.
Oh, wow. Very cool. I'd love to go to Colombia someday.
Mhm. So for Brazil, so it's they love jazz then over there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, jazz is even more so now. I mean, it started like in the 1960s with the
Hmm.
whole bossa nova explosion,
Hmm.
American artists collaborating with Antonio Carlos Jobim. But yeah, it's even more so now. There's so much like cross-fertilization between the two countries.
Hmm. And you said that influenced you a lot in your work, the Brazilian theme. So could you explain that to us a little bit?
Well, yes, since there's so much overlap, actually, it was Patricia Barber's bass player years ago that got me into Brazilian music, Mike Arnapol. So I knew about several artists already, João Bosco, Toninho Horta, but my wife has really exposed me to musical styles and regions of Brazil that I had no idea about. So I just was loved what I was hearing. The harmony was similar to jazz, but the rhythms were different.
Ah,
So I just started really like listening a lot, transcribing a lot of songs. I put a trio together and we played a lot of it. Um, so yeah, it's like it's a labor of love. I absolutely adore that music. I would, if I had a really good gig, I would move to Brazil in a heartbeat. But there is a track on the CD where it's called Choro Delinquente. Um, and
ah,
it's choro is a musical style in Brazil that predates samba. It's from Rio de Janeiro
mhm.
originally, and I started to write like a traditional what they would call it. I won't get into the all the mechanics of the style, but I started to write a traditional choro, but then the creative process took me to a different place, and then it sort of got a little bit more funky, almost R&B-ish. So um, that's why I call it delinquent choro because it doesn't go where you think it's where traditionalists would expect it to go.
Mm,
So yeah, so there's a direct Brazilian influence right on one of the tracks there. So
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll be sure to play it later.
yeah.
Uh, is Brazilian rhythm faster than jazz rhythm?
No, it can be slow or fast.
Mm.
It's just the way the rhythm is subdivided and the overall feel is different.
Uh-huh.
Like yeah, jazz we feel things in 1, 2, 3, 4 or 2 and 4, but in a lot of Brazilian styles you have this kind of just 1 and 2, almost like 2, 4, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Mm.
Yeah, and they have these 16th notes that kind of drive the whole thing. So it's yeah,
Mm.
it takes some getting used to. You really have to like research the music and practice it. Yeah, it's a different thing than swing, but it's equally as rewarding for me. Yeah.
And somehow you combine the two styles, the American jazz style with the Brazilian.
Yeah, you can take a Brazilian pop song and use the chords as a vehicle for improvisation. You can improvise over a sambas and bossa novas just like you would a jazz song here.
Mm.
Um, the only difference I would wager is that lyrics are very very important in Brazil. Like Brazilians know the lyrics to all these thousands of songs.
Wow.
So I really try to keep that in mind when I'm improvising is the what is the song trying to say and just the rhythmic intricacies of the music. I want to make sure that I honor that and try to sound as authentic as I can instead of like just a jazz player that's like moonlighting on a
Mm.
Brazilian song. But
Mm.
yeah, it can be used. They can be used as jazz songs, definitely. I love that.
And it can be danced to as well.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I've played many gigs where people just got up and started dancing, which you don't always see on jazz gigs. It doesn't happen a whole
Mhm.
lot.
Yeah, well, the Brazilians love to dance, and I, I like learning that they memorize so many songs by heart.
Yeah, it's just a cultural thing.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. I mean, we sort of have that here with rock and pop music, where you go to a concert and everybody's mouthing the lyrics. But yeah, it's even more so
Mhm.
there. Yeah.
Well, you said that you had a trio, and then in high school you said that you had a band. So was that a band that you put together, or you and your friends put together? And or it's not the high school band that was the class band, was it?
No, but the drummer and I met in concert band. We were both in the percussion section together.
Uh-huh.
And then my brother, I have a twin brother who's a vocalist and plays several other instruments. So that's three. And then the fourth guy was just a friend of a friend, and we knew he played an instrument. So yeah, it was really just friends getting together, and we formed the band and played a bunch of shows and thought we were going to be rock stars, but it didn't quite it didn't quite work out as we had hoped. But it was a fantastic experience. Yeah, writing your own music and playing it live.
Mm-hmm. And you never got any stage fright then. You were very calm from the beginning.
Oh no, no, I'd get nervous like anybody else. Yeah, performing, sure. It
Mhm.
depends on the context and the venue, but sure, yeah, they still get nerves. Yeah, you just try to like channel them through the music somehow.
Mhm. I said that I see some performers, they're nervous in the beginning, but once they get into the music and then they kind of like become part of the song and they're like trans uh they kind of like travel to another world and they're in that world of that song.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, you get into a space where the creativity is flowing and yeah, you're kind of almost outside of time. You're not thinking about the glasses clinking in the back of the bar. You're in the zone, as they say. So yeah, that's the space you want to get to. But if you're really nervous, sometimes it's a little tricky to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do, then yeah, then things should flow well.
How do you separate it? Like sometimes you when you're in the zone and then you're just kind of the other parts of the world are like outside of you, but you're still observing the audience. So how do the two meld together? How do the two how do you bring the two together? The audience and then you being in that world of your song.
That's a great question. I think really, and to be quite honest, when you're in the zone, you're no longer really thinking about the audience. I mean, you're giving to them and you're performing for them, but you're trying to get your ego out of the way and not think, okay, what would this audience member like, or what would this person like to hear? You kind of have to just kind of throw all that away and get into a place where the music is just kind of unfolding by itself, and it's not based on any kind of judgment. But yeah, that is a tricky thing to be in a venue. You have people watching you. So I would say if there is any way to reconcile those two things, it's like me us as musicians, we have phrases that we know we can play, and when you're in the middle of an improvisation and you're going through something, if the confidence level is there, then you can still kind of have a connection with the audience and still play at the same time. I think there's a way to do that. Um, but ultimately, when you're really, really in the zone, you're not thinking about the people in the room anymore until the song's over. And then you're like, hey.
Uh, but what if you see that the audience is really transfixed and really enjoying the performance? Does that you see that, right? While you're performing, even though you're so in transfixed in your own performance, that you're really into your own performance, but you still see the reaction, right?
I try to, yeah. Sometimes it's difficult to do that because
Mhm.
especially as a band leader, when
Oh.
you're
Mhm.
thinking about 1,000 different things. You're thinking, okay, what song is next? What's the tempo for this?
Mhm.
How long should the set be? But I am trying to definitely make a connection with the audience. So it's tricky, but it's possible. It's possible to do it.
Lots
Yeah.
of multitasking.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a good multitasker, just as my wife.
When you were starting out, how did you get your first album?
My first album was in 2001.
Hmm.
I had just like many artists, you write material, you amass a collection of compositions, and it's just that the timing was right. I had been in Chicago for about 5 years, and I had a collection of like-minded musicians that I really enjoyed playing with,
Hmm.
and it took a while to complete because it's a financial process putting a CD together. You have to
Hmm.
pay for the studio time, pay the musicians, pay for the duplication, the artwork, and all that. But yeah, it was 2001. It was a good time, and I felt it really turned out well. But that was the first one that I did as a jazz artist.
What's the name of it?
Here and Now, There and Before.
Oh, and
Yeah.
uh, did you get any guidance into when you were doing the album?
Oh, like musical guidance or just
Oh,
any recording?
uh, business guidance.
Oh, business guidance. No, not really.
Oh.
I just, you know, um, just talking with other musicians, I got an idea how much do studios usually charge, what's the going rate, what's a fair price to pay the musicians. I financed it myself. But what's interesting is like in the late 90s, I kept finding excuses not, you can find every excuse in the world not to do a record, especially financially. So I was actually involved in this sort of self-help seminar that encouraged me to just throw my shoes over the fence, so to speak. So I had to deliver. I had to get the process started. So, like I said, it did take about a year and a half from the beginning of the recording to having it on the shelves or out to the radio stations.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just pushed myself to do it and gathered up the money. I may have used a credit card at the time. I don't, yeah, but I didn't really have any guidance, musical or otherwise at the time.
So when was your first successful album?
Oh, when was it, you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and which was it too?
I think that one did pretty well. It
Mhm.
got some good airplay, and it was on CD Baby at the time,
Mhm.
and there were some venues in town that I know that were playing it. But I have relatively little output CD wise. That's the only, other than Old Souls, that's the only leader instrumental records that I have. But then very soon after that, I collaborated with Tiffany, and we did 3 CDs together, and all of those seem to do pretty well. Uh, so yeah, I mean, jazz radio, it's a tricky thing because you're not going to be Beyonce or Taylor Swift. But I mean, I think we got some good reviews and some good exposure. So all in all, I'm proud of what we did, and I think it turned out okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I played a couple of the tracks. I think Storm on the Island or something. Was it?
Oh yeah, Riders on the Storm you
Yeah,
played.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Storm.
yeah. I heard, yeah, from the Doors.
Yes, and then
Yeah.
also I think Nothingness.
Very good. Nothingness.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. That's another cover.
Mhm.
Tiffany and I, we like to take pop and rock songs and transform them
Mhm.
into jazz.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. How did you and Tiffany meet, and then how did you start working together?
I think it was around 1998, 1999. I think somebody recommended me. She needed a guitarist for a gig, and I was a
Mhm.
substitute, and I played with her, and so that's how we met, and then we discovered that we had mutual musical tastes, musical loves, and started collaborating together, and the rest
Mhm.
is rest is history.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I think we went to one of your performances. It was great.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And if of those albums, were there any stories, anything special happened, and maybe like during the performances uh, of with Tiffany?
Oh, during the performances. Well, we trying to think. We we had the opportunity to play some gigs on the East Coast and the West Coast, and then
Oh.
of course around the Midwest.
Mhm.
And our second record that we did in this room, we primarily we're a duo, voice and guitar, but
Mhm.
we love to invite special guests.
Mhm.
So we had all these different people. When we played in St. Louis, some of them would join us. So even though we were playing out of town quite a bit as a duo, there were stops along the way where we got to have particular musicians that were on the CD play with us. And that was thrilling. But as far as like big stories, I mean, they're probably not suitable to be to be told on the air. There was one place in California, this little pizza place. I don't even know how we booked the gig, but we could not hear ourselves at all. The PA system was terrible. People were talking and weren't acknowledging us.
Oh.
So that was that was one of the low points, but there were plenty of high points, definitely.
Mhm. Well, that happens. It's like live radio. Anything could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on the road, life can
Mhm.
be challenging.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you was it usually driving or did you fly as well, going between all the gigs?
Well, um, we did a bunch of New York gigs where we had to fly, but then we would rent a car
Mhm.
sometimes, depending on where we were staying. The West Coast, we flew and then drove around to these different cities, like
Mhm.
in wine country and in
Mhm.
San Francisco proper. But one kind of fun gig was I believe it was in Denver, Colorado, or Colorado Springs, where there was a contest, a jazz contest on jazz radio that
Mhm.
Tiffany won. She just decided to
Enter?
enter this contest, and it was uh, a bunch of like jazz luminaries performing. Earl Klugh. I'm trying to remember who else. But we used that since she had her flight paid for, we used that as an opportunity to book some gigs around the event that she was going to see that she got for free.
Mhm.
So so yeah, I got to meet Earl Klugh. I got to meet Johnny Smith, the guy that played Moonlight in Vermont back in the early 50s.
Mhm.
So that was definitely a high point. How
Wow.
often does that happen where you win a contest and then we were able to book some gigs in Colorado around it?
Wow. Did she sing a couple of songs or just one song for the contest?
Oh, she didn't. It wasn't a performing contest. It was more just to get tickets to see somebody play. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah, which was yeah. So she didn't do any. We just watched the show. But then the next day or the day before that, we booked. I remember there being a record store that we played at, and then there's a venue that still exists, I believe, in Denver,
mm,
Dazzle Jazz Club that we played at.
mm,
Yeah. So yeah, we turned it into an it's fun when that kind of thing. It conveniently works out for you.
abs- absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that traveling could become inspiration for writing. Did any of your songs inspired by this traveling and seeing new places during your gigs?
There is a track that has a French name on the CD,
Mhm.
and my French pronunciation is awful, but Place de République,
Yeah.
de la République.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, which is the Republic Plaza.
Hmm.
There's a famous historical figure that has a statue right in the middle of the plaza. But when I used to tour with Patricia, we always stayed in this one hotel that was in that particular plaza.
Hmm.
And sometimes on the road, if you have downtime, it's a great opportunity to write. So I would be in my hotel room just killing time, so I started to compose this piece, and I'm like, oh, why don't I just name it after the plaza? It's a very large, one of the larger plazas in Paris,
Hmm.
and there's always a lot of activity. There are vendors, there are cafes, McDonald's. So yeah, so I took that as an opportunity to write and name it after that specific place that I had been to so many times. But that's kind of an isolated thing. I don't typically write or name compositions after places I've been. But who knows? Maybe in the future I'll do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love traveling. It's so much fun.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you are tired, but after seeing so many different things and you being an artist, it just kind of makes sense that you might get inspired.
Yeah, yeah, and I love it when artists do that when they will have a concept CD and then they'll have all these different places. Yeah, it's a it's a easy yet meaningful way to write music is to honor places that you've been.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll see some of that in your future. Maybe some places from Brazil.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
So, what are your future projects? Any future projects?
Well, this quintet that I specifically put together for this
Hmm.
record, I plan to do more, definitely book more gigs with them, but I would like
Hmm.
to do a second record. I don't know when it will come out, but with a little bit more adventurous music, stuff I hear stuff the CD is fairly straight ahead, I mean,
Hmm.
mainstream jazz. I'm a big fan of 1960s blue note hard bop. It's kind of somewhat coming out of that. But
Hmm.
yeah, the new thing I would like it to be more radical. I haven't started composing it yet, but I would like to do another CD with these fellas. They're wonderful musicians. Dana Hall on drums, Clark Summers on bass. Uh, Chris Madsen on tenor saxophone, and Chad McCullough on trumpet, who co-owns the label Caligram Records, by the way, Chad, who's a wonderful guy. But yeah, I would like to do more work with that band. And beyond that, I haven't thought that much ahead. I would like to do something Brazilian related in the future as well.
What about teaching? You are teaching as well, right?
Yeah, I teach at Elmhurst University and Roosevelt University
Hmm.
downtown,
Hmm.
and yeah, I really enjoy teaching, getting hearing young musicians develop and teaching. Really, you're learning as you teach. I feel most of the time, I learn what I need to work on, ways to just articulate things better with students, help them find new ways to encourage them and inspire them. So yeah, teaching is a huge part of my. I don't do it just for the financial benefit. I really do enjoy it.
Hmm. How much of the day, how much time does it take out of your day? Because sometimes you have to book gigs. Do you have to book your gigs around your teaching time then?
Yeah, so I mean, teaching generally for me is during the daytime. So with gigs, it's not usually a problem with gigs, but there are some commitments that I have where I have to, like for example, this week I have two groups playing in a nighttime event.
Hmm.
So I have to make sure that I don't book a gig on that night, or if I do book a gig, I can make sure that there's a teacher there that can kind of navigate the evening, the concert. So, but yeah, usually they don't get in the way of each other. But it makes for some long days sometimes where you're up early and then you're up late. But I enjoy it. I like the variety.
Do your students have to perform on juries?
They do, yeah. We have juries coming up, yeah, at the end of the semester, the first week of May.
Mhm.
Yeah, or not the first week of May, but in the middle of May, at the end of the semester. Yeah, yeah.
So, do they work on the jury piece all through the semester? How does it work?
Yes, some do. I mean, to get into the details of it, it depends if they're taking lessons for credit or if they're doing non-credit. Non-credit students don't have to do a jury. We just will work on various pieces throughout the semester and just learn certain aspects of improvisation from those. But I do have several credit students that will, yeah, we're working on. Sometimes they get to the pieces a little bit later than I would like, but that's part of teaching.
Mhm. And when uh, do you have students that that you're coaching business-wise as well? Have any of your students um, uh, started performing that you know of?
Yeah, actually, one of the students that's doing a jury this semester, he is in his 40s
Mhm.
and he's already had a lot of schooling. I don't want to embarrass him by mentioning his name. He went to DePaul. He already went to Elmhurst, and he's coming back to school to do a music education degree because he wants to teach and have a
Oh.
steady income.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's performed already with a rock band of his, and I believe he's done some jazz gigs. So yeah, it kind of depends on the student. It can get really tricky to navigate if a student is doing a lot of performing and then they start to miss their school commitments.
Mhm.
That's a tricky thing to deal with as a teacher because you want them to succeed and to perform out, but if they're missing too much class time, and their grades are suffering, you have to kind of be the bad cop and come on, somebody's paying for your school. You have to honor your commitments here. You'll
Mhm.
have the rest of your life to perform.
Well, that's some advice to the student during office hours.
Didn't think I'd be talking about that on the radio. Yeah.
Neal Alger, if our listeners want to learn more about you and about the any gigs that are coming up, where would they go? And do you have uh, just repeat about any of the gigs that are coming up right now?
Oh yeah, sure. So I do have a website and I try to keep it updated with my gig schedule, nealalger.com, NEALALGER.com. And I always send out Facebook invites. And I'm on Instagram now. Chad inspired me to finally take the plunge. I was avoiding it for a long time. So I'm on Instagram.
What do you think about it?
Huh? Oh, it's okay. It's set up a little bit differently than Facebook, but yeah, it's particularly for, letting people know about what's coming up.
Mhm.
But the May 10th and 11th, Friday and Saturday at Andy's Jazz Club, that's I think we're playing the first two sets because they have the later set. The third set is the later band, but we're the first two. I think it's 6:30 and 8:30 if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
But yeah, I always try to let my fans and know well beforehand when my shows are, whether it's through Facebook, my website, or Instagram. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Neal Alger,
Thank
for
you.
joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today. And maybe we'll talk again in the future.
Yay, thanks.
Thank you.
You guys great.